Let's talk long story long, life redefining decisions that we have had to make. We all have had to have some sort of decision, big or small, that absolutely shifted and rerouted our life in some kind of way. And mine, definitely one of the biggest ones ever in my lifetime, has to be me calling off my wedding. Yeah, you heard that right. In 2022, I called off my wedding 2 months before the big day and going into what was 7 years with that partner at that time. I always get asked, why did you do it? Did you get cheated on? Like, what happened? Did you cheat? Did someone get in a fight? And honestly, let me just say, long story long, so many things spiraled in my brain, in my heart of hearts, that landed me in a decision kind of literally at the last possible point I could have made it outside of other than walking down the aisle and saying no and being a runaway bride. 2 month mark right before when we would have been getting married in May, I called everything off at the end of that February. So what got me there? Let me just take it back to the start of that relationship. I was going into what would have been my later sophomore year of high school. I mean, not high school, college. And I was turning 22. I had just come out of a pretty bad breakup about like 4 or 5-ish months before. I probably shouldn't have been dating again. And yet I was. And I met this guy with zero mutual connections, which had never dated someone where you didn't have a mutual connection. We met on a movie set. We were actually filming Captain America Civil War, and that is a part of the Marvel franchise. And it was a scene with Tony Stark, who is Robert. Oh my God, why am I blanking on who Tony Stark is? Why am I blanking? Maybe I've like trauma blocked data because I know who the actor is. I'm blanking, but it was Tony Stark's scene. And it's basically a scene where he's speaking to a bunch of MIT students. And Georgia Film was popping off this summer. Everything was filming in Georgia. It was a summer I was not taking classes that summer at college. And I was like, I'm just going to try to do movie extra work all summer long and not have a full-time job. And I did it. I mean, I was hopping set to set that summer, and I ended up on this set for this MIT scene with Tony Stark and Captain America Civil War. And it's about like 300 people. I mean, this wasn't like some big featured awesome thing, but it was pretty cool to be like in the action and seeing such a cool actor and such a huge movie set because there was a lot. It's an Avengers movie, so you know there's all kinds of stuff going on this movie set. And out of 300 and something people, I was sitting in the row in front of this future fiancé of mine, and he caught my attention with some kind of conversation. He kind of like butted in with me and this other guy who had been on set all day together, and we and him kind of then hit it off, exchanged numbers. He goes into, he is actually wanting to be an actor like in real life full time, and he's done acting work. He's also sings and records music and produces his own tracks, and he has this upcoming live performance the next weekend and wants me to come to the show. So it bada bing bada boom. It really felt like this like out of body weird way to meet someone, and I had never had, like, it literally felt like a movie, a way of meeting someone, and not ever having someone that I've dated without a mutual connection, like where I could call back at least like 2 to 5 different people that we mutually know before I even like talk or know this person. And I'm from a small town in the South, and I went to a smaller college, so I felt like everybody kind of knew each other in a way, or at least had a connection or a referral. So me dating someone that I completely had none of that with was actually a unique and fun experience, and I'm thankful for that. With that being said, you know, you come into a lot of stuff where you're only getting a picture painted to you, like from one person's point of view, from him to me, but also from me to him. So it's a very interesting dating dynamic. And I will say in the beginning, it was pretty like toxic. Like every other weekend, I was partying and going to clubs with my friends, and I would just like break up with him so I could go to the club or go on this trip to Miami and run around with these like girlfriends of mine and stay out till like 4 a.m. And I wasn't necessarily girlfriend material, but I was trying to be in a relationship with a guy who was clearly like chasing after me and liked me, and I was like not sold on it yet. But I will say, like, within that first like 4 to 5-ish months of like just really me towing the line and of, do I want to be in this, do I not, something shifted to where I felt like I genuinely do think I don't want to not be with this person, because we went through like one little breakup, and I knew he went out on a date with someone else. And I found out through someone else that was actually a mutual friend. It was her friend on this date with him. And I immediately got like that feeling of you want what you can't have. And I immediately thought, like, I think he is a catch. And I'm going to be pissed if this is something I let go of that I should have been in longer. And when I tell you, when I put my foot on that gas pedal in that way of thinking, I never let up on it. And that was probably my first red flag on myself with dating that I shouldn't have done. Because I clearly laid on the gas too long, like 6.5, nearly 7 years long situation. But it's neither here or there, because it really is the foundation of who I am today and the woman I am today. I am so thankful for both that relationship, that engagement, that hashtag almost wedding, as well as that breakup and calling it all off. Like, it was very foundational. This was that pivotal decision-making moment for me when I called everything off that totally shifted the trajectory of my life. And it doesn't mean I get like an easy pass go. I get like the pass of like not getting a divorce or having an amazing relationship next situation. It just means that I am thankful I didn't spend any more of my life in that state of, what am I doing here? This doesn't feel right. I don't feel happy. And when I say that, I'm saying it out loud, and I'm saying it in that way because probably within the second or third year of that relationship, I started shifting into this slow downward spiral and domino effect of depression that was really masked and hidden. I started gaining a bunch of weight. I really started eating my feelings, started suppressing everything I felt that was negative about the relationship and staying in it. And I also started isolating myself and my feelings towards all of that. And that's not the personality. If you know me, you know that ain't my personality. Hence why you're on a podcast hosted by me called Long Story Long, where I am trauma dumping and oversharing with the masses of the World Wide Web. Imagine me not sharing even to my close friends and family about turmoil or heartbreak or confusion around my own relationship. Like, I just went into full-blown pageantry or politician mode, whatever you want to call it. And yes, I was in pageants. That's another long story long. Of suppressing my feelings, and if it didn't seem picture perfect of this like relationship that I wanted it to seem like, I wasn't sharing it. And I also work in PR, and I am kind of guilty of PRing situations unintentionally, like not necessarily lipstick on a pig, because no one's a pig in this situation, but making it look better than it is, and overhyping and overselling or over supporting because I see the greatness or the potential in something or someone, and especially in a dating dynamic. And I will never do that again. Basically, like painting too clean and too nice of a picture for someone to where I then feel like anything that negatively comes from that person to me, I cannot disclose or share to my friends and family because it will make them look bad. I'd rather just not share it or suppress that energy because I've already painted a picture that that person's this, that, and the other. They cannot be capable of making me feel this way. And with some of that, I say there was a lot of like strange encounters I think him and I both had, as far as just we're growing up like adjacent to each other. He's 2 years older than I was. Again, started dating when I was around 22, so he's around 24. And 6.5, nearly 7-year relationship of every holiday. We moved in together at month 8. So roommates, essentially 90% of the relationship, which is a huge turning point. No matter how early or how late in the game you do that, when you live with your partner, it is a whole other level, point blank, period. We lived together with roommates in the beginning, and we lived together on our own. We owned a home together. I mean, there was a lot of growing, and with growing comes a lot of growing pains. And when you're in a relationship, a romantic relationship, and especially one so binded, like we've been together so long, it just never felt like breaking up was an option, period. I lost my lighting in my video, but that's okay, because it's a long story long. We need longer battery life in our LED lighting. But yeah, it was definitely one of those growing pain things I should have acknowledged early on as things were shifting, opinions were changing. There was I think, a disdain growing for him and me, and maybe vice versa, because he started not treating me in a certain way and maybe like taking more negativity out on me. That was stuff happening in his world. And then I had things happening that were positive in my world, but couldn't fully like flourish and thrive into those things, because if I did, it would take away from whatever was going wrong in his world, if that makes sense. And it kind of created this weird dynamic that I picked up on after the fact of, I don't want to say competition, but definitely like my family versus your family, my look versus your look, my friendships versus your friendship, my aesthetic versus your aesthetic, my job versus your job. Like, it was always like a tit for tat towards the latter years, and it got very uncomfortable, but disguised as so comfortable. We were on this like lonely, isolated island together by choice. We both chose to be on that island. Nobody was there against their will, but there was so many signs that pointed to, you're not supposed to be here. And every time I prayed and asked for a sign, I got one blaring and bold, and I would ignore it and be like, there's no way. God would not put me in this long-term relationship just to have me end it. And then I think by the time I was really starting to lean into, I think we should take some steps back. So like when we were in the process of deciding to sell the home we were living in together, I wanted to go back into like a 1-bedroom rental. And I remember even expressing to my friend that I thought that was going to take some cards off the table and let it feel a little less serious. It was at year 5. I was starting my own company. He was going through one of like the highest points of his career that had just kind of peaked out. So he had just come off this really big high financially and business-wise. It was going great for him, but he was now kind of like in this weird stagnant, I don't know what's next for me. And then I was in this like, I'm going to take charge, I'm going to do all these things land in my life, in my head, and a lot of opportunities that were presenting themselves. But it did feel like a clash, because even though I was in that headspace of like, let's just take a step back, it was like he then finally took the initiative to propose and get a ring made and get down on one knee and ask me to marry him and spend my life with him. And looking back at it now, I kind of resent it, because it feels like that only spawned from him knowing I was starting to pull away. And to be honest, the only person that truly knew I was pulling away, or ever really knew the sadness I was feeling or the disdain I had with the relationship, was my partner. I was not sharing that with my family, my close friends. I wasn't sharing it online. I wasn't sharing it anywhere. I was very private in that regard. I overshared in the sense of the happy and the look at us and we're so cute and look at all these memories we've created and look at what we're doing. I was not sharing in the, hey, I'm sad. Or I didn't even know. I knew I was sad, but I think there's a level of me just like going numb for a while. And like I said, I was eating my feelings. I was almost binge eating and binge drinking and feeling very much like I had to just be like autopilot. I wasn't even driving the car I was in. And I'm not saying he was either. I think both of us are guilty in our own ways of just kind of letting it continue. And like I said, anytime I try to pump a brake or brake check the whole operation, I did get kind of gaslit just a little bit. I don't know if it was always intentional, but I definitely got talked out of that headspace and decided to stay. And I am thinking that in the long run, that was truly what was meant for both him and for me, that I needed to almost stay to a certain point to really get every emotion exhausted and out of my system in this situation to feel fully affirmed in leaving it. Now, for some people, that looks different. For someone else, that maybe they needed that wedding. They needed that kid and they needed that divorce to then be like, I made the right decision. I did all those things, and that's what I needed to show or learn from before making my decision. I looked at it like the opposite. I honestly was having like night sweats and night terrors about imagining becoming a mom in this setting, or becoming like, I was like, okay, if this is how it feels like first Christmas engaged and I'm this like distraught and upset and depressed and I don't like you right now and I don't like your family and maybe those feelings are mutual, then geez, how does this stuff feel when we get past the honeymoon phase? Like, are we already past the honeymoon phase 5+ years into living together? Like, what are we doing here? But I think the engagement and planning a wedding distracted me from all of that spiraling sadness, weirdness, and it made me hyper fixate on what are the flowers going to be? What's the Pinterest board look like? Let me get like the hand-drawn invitations. Let me talk to this girl. Let me book this photo shoot. Like I just consumed myself with that side of it, and it was something that he didn't really care too much to partake in, so it was something I was doing individually or with my family and friends, and it gave me like this fun outlet, but it took the magnifying glass off of, should I even be doing this? Which it technically should have worked the other way around, but in this situation, it was like something that actually distracted me from the problems. And I think that probably happens to a lot of us because I feel very emotionally and socially aware in a lot of situations and settings, but I do think even this particular chapter of my life, like I said, I was in autopilot. I wasn't driving that car, but I was. And it's so strange. Think about how numb I was, to think about how out of control it all felt, when in reality, everything was right at my fingertips if I was going to go, if I was going to stay. But it felt so definitive in my brain, and it felt like so unheard of. And then I remember around our engagement party, which was about like 6 months before the big day, voicing to both my sister and my mom about having these doubts. And I think because they were blindsided with, well, you've never really had doubts. Why would you be feeling some type of way? You're probably having cold feet. Is it about like the size of the wedding and the event itself? Maybe scale back, downsize, or change some things around to make you not feel like there's this big production of a wedding coming up. And just like make those baby steps in adjusting the actual wedding. And this has nothing to do with your love for this person. Like, we know you're in love, you're happy. I know you don't feel happy. I know you're stressed, but like, don't cancel the wedding. That's not an option. Like, you're not breaking up with him. Like, and I think that is an honest and understandable response, especially from loved ones. And looking back at that now too, like that would be more, I obviously was partial to that because I stayed in the relationship, and I looked at it like, oh, let me suppress these feelings even more because I just said them out loud to people that care about me and that are right here and involved in this relationship, and they're not telling me I should leave it. So I need to just like hunker down is how I felt, like get out of my own way. And what my ex used to say is like I was self-sabotaging by wanting to end it. I was self-sabotaging by threatening a breakup, and that I needed to understand and recognize that there is nothing wrong. We are in love. We are happy. Yes, there's some family dramas here, or yes, there's some like things we could work on there, but no, you do not need to break up, or we do not need to separate. And if we do, that is on you, Casey. That is your decision, and that is something you're going to be in charge of. And it just felt like villain. I just felt like if I ever did fully decide to exit the relationship and leave without having something happen to me, like getting cheated on or a scandal happen, then I was going to be this big villain. And it's sad. I used to honestly almost pray that something would happen, like a shoe would just freaking drop and I'd have an excuse to then get out of this relationship and be like, well, he cheated on me, so I called it all off. Oh, good. Not that makes it easier, but in my head, I looked at it like that's going to be so much easier than me just calling it off because I don't feel like it's the right decision. And it's not just calling off a wedding. I know if I call off this wedding and call off this engagement, I am no longer going to be with this person. I'm going to live on my own, or I'm going to go figure it out. I've been preoccupied for like nearly 7 years by this thing. And it also felt like just like a failure. Like you put almost 7 years of your life towards something and you're just going to like just turn it off, end it. That didn't feel or sit right with me either. That did not seem like the way to go. And I just remember the closer and closer the wedding got, I just kept further feeling the viral feeling of like, there's going to be a moment I can't fake it till you make it anymore. And I don't want to realize that with like a baby on my hip. This headspace I'm in, I don't think goes away when I walk down the aisle and I have a bunch of cute pictures and all my family's there and we're married. I think I'm going to feel 1,000 times worse about it. And it was that kind of started keeping me up at night. And it led me to just really leaning into praying to God and being like, if this is what I need to do, give me those signs. What do I need to do? I know I'm not going to get a roadmap of how I need to do it or like whatever, but if it is what I'm supposed to do, please affirm me in that. Like, I just want to feel affirmed that it's right for me. And I remember there was like some disagreement between that ex and I. A separate note, I was supposed to be going to dinner with a good friend of mine, my best friend. And I was like, yeah, let me go to this dinner. And we're just meeting for Mexican, having margaritas and just eating a regular night out with my best friend. Let me just say, like, after like one sip of the drink, I just like went into a trauma dump of just word vomit. Like, I couldn't stop it, of all this stuff that I had been suppressing, like from even pre-engagement. At this point, I've been engaged like almost, I think, over 2 years, maybe. I can't remember. But I mean, I'm in it. This best friend is just like stoically sitting there staring at me, like just taking in everything I'm saying, maybe a little eyebrow raise, maybe a little but I mean, it was just like it was literally a sounding board of just me being boom, 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 and then there was this, and then there was that, and then I felt like this, and then I was like that, and then I'm like, I don't know if I want to marry him, and I just kept going, and I'm crying. I was like literally like choking on my breath at one point in the middle of this Mexican restaurant. And I just remember I got to the end of one of the statements and I just looked at her and I was like, yeah, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And she just paused and looked at me and was like, Casey, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. Based on everything you just told me, you know exactly what you need to do. And I was just thinking, right. That's why I'm freaking out, because based on everything I just told you and how I've been feeling, what I need to do is go call off a wedding, call off an engagement, and break up with my boyfriend, and also kick him out of our apartment. Is that like what I need to do? I just remember being like, okay, I'm taking him to go food home from this date, because that was just a thing. That's what was always a thing. And I'm going to present it to him and just go take a shower, because it's obvious that I've been crying. Whether he would be able to tell or not, I'm not sure. Let's just like, I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. It's kind of like, I'm going to check in with you, best friend, after I do all that, because this was already, I wasn't planning on doing this tonight. And I don't know what just happened. I just like unleashed all these demons and just word vomited everything at my friend. And I'm still just genuinely so thankful for her and her presence and her sounding board in that moment. It was clearly exactly what I needed to happen, and that was God's way of like affirming me that night. I just remember I got back to the apartment, gave him his food. He is unfazed. He doesn't think anything is wrong with me or whatever. I'm going to go take a shower. I remember we had this like rainfall shower head that was reflective like a mirror. And I just looked into the shower head and said, bitch, you are not waiting one more day. You're not about to go just sleep on it, because you will literally wake up tomorrow and have found some way to talk yourself out of this decision and go back to what is quote unquote been comfortable for you. You need to get really uncomfortable, get out of the shower, and go freaking do it. Like, I just literally like looked in the mirror like, yeah, just come to Jesus with myself. And I get out of the shower and I did the we need to talk. And I pretty much just broke it down. I cried through some of it. He cried through some of it. What is so also very affirming and telling, it was almost like he just was like, yeah, okay. All right, that's the decision you're making. That's what's happening. All right. There was obviously sadness. Like I said, we both cried. There was obviously some it's a breakup. But there was a lot of stuff that just felt like, wow. So if I didn't do this, you're just going to marry me? I'm confused. Why is this all on me? It's some big decision I have to make. And it's like I'm this villain or I'm the one ending it. When in reality, you're just chilling. We're going to be fine. Wait, what? I don't think so. I don't know if you know what's going on here. It was weird. Both slept on the couch that night, and then the next morning he said, to make things easier, we don't need to worry about like this roommate dynamic. My name was already on the lease. He was not on the lease. He was gonna just get my main stuff and go live at my parents for like the next month. They just got a place in Florida. Again, that's out of state from where we were. And he's like, if you don't mind, I'm going to just go stay there for like a month, and then we'll figure out the rest of my things and stuff like that in like a month. And I was like, okay. So that's what's happening. So he literally like packed up like kind of like just a bare minimum, like a suitcase and something else of his stuff, and literally rolled out, went and moved in with his parents. And I remember I had like a cry about it day. Like I had like a swirl of like what's going on and all happening at once. Like there was no downtime of like, we're going to kind of sort of be roommates and kind of sort of break up slowly and kind of sort of slowly call off this wedding. No, it was like he was gone by the next morning, and it's time to face the music. And I'm also very thankful for that there was no lingering in betweenness that would have made me like revert or back up on my decision. I stood firm in that, and a lot of the circumstances around me kind of forced me to hold true to that, and I'm thankful, and I feel like that was God affirming me as well. And I will say, like, for that first 30-day period, there was a lot of constant communication to where I kind of started getting annoyed because I was like, yeah, we're supposed to be broken up, and I don't know if it's like a coping thing. And I didn't like feeling like so accessible, and I didn't want to like maybe access him too much either. And it was just, I'm not blaming that on him either. I'm just saying it was like weird, uncomfortable territory, but that's with any breakup. But it wasn't like a sad, I miss you, I want to get back with you feeling for me. Speaking for myself here. Towards the end of that 30-day point, I remember him making a comment around going to grab like coffee and seeing the dog that we had together and all the stuff. And I was just like, honestly, no, I'm actually going to be at this other event, but I put all of your stuff, I packed it up, organized it, and it's in the storage unit in the hallway. And I think from there, it shifted the entire dynamic between me and him, because the copacetic, chill, we're going to maintain a friendship or a level of respect vibe shifted, I think, when there was a realization of, oh shit, and I don't want to say his ego or whatever, but I do think a part of him genuinely thought it was potentially just a break. Like, I'm just needing to take the stress of the wedding off of myself. And so canceling the wedding, getting through all that, announcing to our friends and family, like, we're not together in some kind of fashion, and like shifting through like this break for 30 days was going to make me be, okay, but I still want to like be together or get back together. And I wasn't. And I don't know if that sat well with him or not. I mean, honestly, there hasn't been any follow-up conversation, and there really shouldn't be. Yeah, a transformative decision. And when I tell you, every day since making that decision, I have been absolutely affirmed in so many random ways that was the decision. That was the right decision. And I remember even a year later, that next summer, I was on a trip to Mexico with my niece and my family. We're all there at dinner, and one of them brought up the fact that this ex was getting married, that they saw it that day on social media. And I'm just like, and I'm in a thong bikini in Mexico. What is going on? A year later. And it's just to each their own. And honestly, even when that person like showed me that this person, like, he has a fiance, not only has a fiance, he's getting married, and like all within a matter of like 6 months or whatever, looked like that was his person. And I would genuinely have this feeling of like, I'm so glad I did what I did, because look, you found your person, and look, y'all look happy enough to get married, like off the rip. Okay, good. I did not feel like, well, oh, I haven't moved on yet, or I haven't had my person. I moved on like within the first 24 hours. I didn't need a new person to move on with. I had like fully, physically, mentally, emotionally checked all the way out of that relationship before even leaving it. And I think by the time I actually left it, it was more of like, I need to sort and sift through what just happened in my own emotional baggage and figure out why I was in autopilot the way I was, why I was in depression the way I was, why I had gained weight the way I did, and really hone into all of those demons before I could ever entertain a date or entertain someone getting to know me. And I'm thankful for that as well. Like, in everyone's timeline, everyone's pace is different. I'm not knocking him for getting back out there sooner or later or whatever. I'm just saying I genuinely looked at that and was happy and thought, another sign from God that we were not meant to be. Look, that's who he's meant to be with. And just further affirmed to me, like, I made the right decision in calling everything off and not staying with that person or having kids with that person, marrying that person, because I genuinely do feel like had I not made the decision, that was all what was going to happen next, because that's what we were planning to do. And it wasn't like a copacetic, let's do this together decision. It was very much presented to me as a decision that I was going to have to make, like I said, that villain vibe that I got. And so I'm taking pride and accountability and ownership that I made that decision for the both of us. So you're welcome. But yeah, there is a lot of like PTSD around the actual relationship that I don't think you would realize just being broken up or single or going into another relationship and then dating again. There's been like different evolutions of me unpacking stuff from that almost 7 years with someone, now almost like 3 years later after calling off the wedding, that I'm still sorting through. And it's my own little traumas in some way, not even necessarily all traumatic. That sounds a little dramatic, but there's a lot of little ticks and things that happen in a long-term relationship, especially when you're living with someone, to where I do feel like a divorcee or divorcee or whatever in some capacity, because it does feel like there was this divorce, or there was this like such a companionship that was just gone. And even though there wasn't this scandal, like a cheating or a lying situation, we didn't have that type of thing. There was a lot of these like microcosms in it. And what I'll tell you what, there's something to be said around big shit hitting the fan. Like you have one big like sign and then you're out, like one big definitive moment that would all like the straw that broke the camel's back, versus a whole bunch of little things that make up a decision. And I think that there was so many of those over the course of that relationship that I didn't even really fully get a grip or grasp them until after. And I'm still grasping and getting a grip. A lot of triggers and things around just dating in general. I have dated since. I've gone on several dates. I've been in the hookup scene. I've been in the meet the parent scene. I've been in all the scenes in the last 2 years. And to me, it's just not a priority right now, specifically honing in on just like myself. I'm not on that dating apps at this moment. But even in this last relationship that I had most recently, I was with that person for about like 6-ish months, had a breakup for a month, and got back together for another like 2-ish months. Like, so I don't know what you want to call that. And that was last year in 2024. Knowing him from like January to stuff ending at the end of like September. And even during that relationship, I started unpacking stuff that I hadn't really thought about since 2022. I was just like, oh, wait, this is how that feels. I forgot how it feels. Like when there's parents involved, or there's a sibling involved, or there's a roommate, there's a friend, there's a this, there's a that, there's an opinion, there's a schedule. And a lot of it reminded me of like the excitement, the fun, and the cuteness that goes into like the beginnings of a relationship, just as much as it reminded me of oh my God, this is a lot of work. This takes a lot of time. Do I even want to give up this time? Is it even worth it? This is like competing against all of these other schedules for me. I was humbled in a way by being broken up with in that first, like after that first like 5-6 months, and being kind of blindsided by it, that honestly just broke my heart. And as devastating as it was in the time and really just like made me so sad, it also like reawoke that part of me that I thought I was never going to touch again. Because I kind of looked at it like I'm that chick who called off her wedding. And even though I am dating again and I'm like seeing someone, I don't think I'm ever going to be like that lover girl or like see a future with anybody else. Like I'm not going to be the Mrs. Want to get married person, because I've already kind of sort of did that, and I did the long-term relationship. And it's not that I don't feel like I don't deserve it. I just haven't necessarily wanted it, or even like with these one-off dates or talking to different people, thought or saw that for myself. And this person and this part of the relationship last year genuinely just reopened that part of my brain and way of thinking and got me excited. And then when out of nowhere dropped me. It's not funny. laughing through the pain. It was humbling in so many ways, but also just was like, oh my God, I'm hurting like this because I cared. I'm so sad because I was so happy. And it was a nice like reawakening and reality check also of just how quick things can take off. Because that was in a matter of like 6 months after 2 years of being intentionally single and putting my foot down, and like I'm focused on me and I'm having fun and it is all about me. I'm never going to like misprioritize a relationship or a guy above my own stability and happiness ever again. And then within like 6 months of meeting this person and dating this person, I was not right back there at it. There's obviously growth. I've obviously evolved over those last 2 years being single, but there was a level of that heartbreak kid, like that came back out of me, even like college me, because in reality, the dating aspects of going back into dating wasn't just that I had just come out of a relationship or called off a wedding and I'm going back to dating. The reality was I had not been single since I was 21, and I was now like about to be 30. Like, oh my God, what? And I'm trying to date. And then I was 30 in that relationship. The guy was a little bit younger. And I just remember thinking like, I don't know what I'm doing, because I've never dated as this version of myself. I've never dated in like lived alone in my own apartment, had my own business. A whole different version of myself, a whole different set of friends, a whole different dynamic with my family than I was at 21 in college, dating around, like effing around and finding out, as far as like effing around and falling in love and getting a whole boyfriend like I did. Like now it's like, it's a whole different game. But I'm also not necessarily husband hunting. So it's strange dating or being on the apps at my age and it being like, I'm not 100% sure of my intentions, because I'm not over here just trying to like, I don't know, I'm not just bored, but I'm also not over here like trying to meet your mom next week and plan our wedding next year, because I'm also not that. So what am I, So there's a lot of confusion around that. And then in this last relationship, I got really caught up in, oh shit, 0 to 100, less than half a year in, and I'm starting to think about things. And I don't mean things like a wedding and stuff. I'm just saying it was feeling so like lovey and sweet and charismatic, and I genuinely think a lot of that was there. I'm not saying that wasn't real for either myself or for him, but there was elements of, too fast. That's too fast. And as much as it's slow to some people, it felt, looking back, like too fast. And we did kind of reconnect and get back into trying to date again. Then a month of not talking, and I think that only lasted for about like 2.5 months, because he was more so along the lines of, okay, well, let's like get back at it then. If that's what we're going to do, we're going to do it. And I was more along the lines of, I was so heartbroken and I'm so happy we're talking again and I love you and I'm happy we're in each other's lives. But I'm not thinking about 3 months from now. I'm barely holding on to 3 days from now, because I don't know if I trust you. And I don't know if I will. So we went through like this like back and forth, like 2-ish month thing of kind of like picking back up where we left off, talking every day, going on dates. I mean, he did so much sweet stuff for my birthday, and just being like the genuine guy that I fell in love with. And knowing that guy was still there and still existed warmed my heart, because I was so devastated in the breakup. It was like dealing with a death, because it was like he didn't exist. So he did exist, and I was rekindled in that aspect. But then in other aspects was just like, what are you doing, Casey? What are you doing here? What are you figuring out? What is actually even happening? And I am thankful for that extra time, because I think I truly needed that rehashing and like reconnection with that guy to then get to the point of like, you know what, maybe it is for the best that we're not together. And he was very patient with me, and I am thankful for that. It's just an evolutionary experience for me getting onto that side of my brain and of my heart, as far as, oh girl, you are capable of love again. Not only that, you're capable of getting swept off your feet. Like, you're going to be like real in love. You're going to be real heartbroken. And I did. And it did turn me off to dating again. Like, I will say that was quite exhausting. I went on, or back on the dating apps and stuff, like within a few weeks of that breakup last fall. I went on like 1 or 2 dates. I talked to a handful of different guys and was just like, no, especially going into cuffing season and the holidays. Like, I'm not trying to get all jacked up in something else again. So I just was like, this is not for me. And that still hasn't been for me. And now it's January. So that might all change tomorrow. That might be the exact same 6 months from now. We shall see. But regardless, I will keep you guys posted. But yeah, long story long, there is some serious reckoning, both good and bad, but primarily more so good in this circumstance, with decision making and life altering decision making. I know we make decisions every day, big and small, but this decision specifically in my life just changed the entire trajectory. Like, it was like a fork in the road, and I chose the fork less traveled by. And it has been the biggest full circle, like, continuation now, like going on nearly 3 years. And it's just wild thinking back to my old self in that land of things, because there's such a disconnect to who I am now and who that chick was. And I'm thankful for that. I'm glad I can't really find too much common ground, because there's been such an evolution. Like, there's been a whole new cocoon, caterpillar, butterfly moment. Like, I was still a butterfly then, but this is a whole different butterfly. Now we have evolved and we have flown the coop multiple times, even through this last breakup that I had this past year. I feel like that has even been a whole nother transformative place for me in life. And I'm super thankful for that. And even that breakup has felt very affirming. And again, I felt like as much as I wasn't in control and I was heartbroken by the first breakup and the second one, I was. And I was able to feel confident in that decision making, even when I wasn't confident, if that makes any sense. But long story long, as cliche as it is, trust your gut. And when you don't trust your gut or you're not sure about your gut, pray about it and really let go and let God and lean in. But sometimes letting go and letting God's telling you and you need to actually do something. You can't just like sit there and the car is going to drive itself like I was trying to do. When I finally like listened and I drove that car and made that decision and shared it and like leaned in on people who loved me, it truly paid off in so many ways and continues to pay off till this day. So let that be a lesson, however which way you want to take it. And hopefully that brings you to some conclusions in your land of things and thinking if you've been on the fence of something. It could be anything. It could be about leaving a job, leaving a relationship. It could be about getting a job, getting into a new relationship. But let that lesson hopefully help you in your decision making. And thank you for joining me on Long Story Long.